Well, welcome back, everyone, to the next episode of the DFS Down Under Show, Round 18 AFL action presented by Draftstars. And as we all know, Draftstars are Australia's #1 platform for your daily fantasy AFL. Hello to all the viewers watching live on the stream. Hello to all the viewers who are watching us on replay. And also, welcome to my main man on my right-hand side, is the Big Hef. How are you today, mate?
Very good, Smatho. Another couple of weeks. We've got a team tonight. I can't really remember doing this team too much on the whole 3 years. You're going to have to tell me some of these player names, I reckon, when we get to them. Have we ever done a show of Freo?
I might have to do the old Google Drive search and type in Dockers and see how many notes come up. Because, I'm hard to fathom in the 3 or 4 years we've been doing this show. There are going to be some names here that we've never heard of. So bear with us tonight as we trudge through the Dockers and the Cats on Thursday night, but we're also covering the Lions and the Tigers on Friday as well for Draftstars. Now, busy week, Hef. So busy that I'm showing the Draftstars lobby to you now. Look at this.
Ooh.
Tomorrow, Thursday. If you're watching on Thursday afternoon, Thursday evening, I'm sorry about this, but look at this. The T20 on at 9:30, Australian Eastern Standard Time. The Bucks and Suns, Game 4. Good series, this one. That's on 11. And then the Open gets underway that earlier time at 3:30. So, and then you go and roll in the footy at 8 o'clock at night. So you've got wall-to-wall Draftstars action there. So, look, as we say in my interviews, 18 plus only and gamble responsibly at all times. But if you're looking for action, Draftstars is your place to call. Now, been watching a bit of the cricket there, Hef?
Yep, so we stack the Windies and then we see what happens, do we? Well, it's a dead rubber, so maybe Australia, well, I don't know. I don't know what's going on with our T20 team, Smatho. We've got a million openers and number 3s in the world, and now we want to try Mitch Marsh up at number 3. Finchy is getting 30 off 30 every game. It's hard to watch. I actually haven't watched too much of it because it just frustrates me.
It frustrates me. But blokes like Adam here, he can't wait for a bit more drop for the Thursday action. Even Jamie here says, let's go. Brilliant stuff here from the viewers here. I'm looking forward to the Open. It's been a big build-up. Hopefully some guys can get onto Draftstars, a $15,000 contest tomorrow. So make sure that fills up before then. Also, Hef, the golden tickets, we are down to 30. 30 to go. Obviously, we're recording at the time of the State of Origin on. There's 2 up there, and then we've got another 8 tickets throughout the AFL for this round. So by the time Sunday night rolls around, we'll be down to 20. So if you need to get into the golden tickets, I suggest you get in there, get your entries in on Draftstars pretty quick. Also, I want to give a shout out to our golden ticket winners from last week. Now, let me bring up last week's winners, including Matty Lee. He talked it up. He wanted the second one, and he got it. Davidian SG Brown 102, one of our Tassie mates. He managed to get one.
One of the Hobart Mafia.
One of the Mafia. Chubb 78, Paddy Mac 83. Got 2 tickets at the same time. Long and deep, and then Strawn They Them 1-1 in the playoff with one of my good DFS friends in Brento. So shout out to Brento. He might be watching at the moment. Bad luck to him. He's been done it again, but there's still 30 left. We're backing him in. But to all those guys there who are joining us at the Draftstars Live Final, 2 thumbs up to you guys. Congratulations. Now, Hef, let's talk some footy. I know there's a lot of action on Draftstars, but we're really here for the AFL action, all right? And we're talking about the Fremantle Dockers taking on the Geelong Cats. We're over in Perth. Therefore, we have a late start time at 8:10 Australian Eastern Standard Time. So it's going to be a bit of a wait here on a Thursday night. The market. Cats were $1.50 odd this morning when I was doing my notes. Now they're $1.70. So they've drifted right out. The Cats, the line's only 5.5, and the total's 148.5. There's been plenty of rain in Perth over the last week. We've seen the floods that have gone through Perth. So, and even saw that Monday night game where there was just a bit of a bog towards the western end of the ground. So we're not quite sure how Perth is coping with all that rain. There is some rain on the forecast, but you've got to check that before the contest starts. And we start on Thursday night with a $60,000 contest. 10,000 high roller, the mini, the micro, they're all still there for us, Hef. So let's run through some teams. Ethan Hughes is in for the Dockers. Walker is being managed. Connor Blakely has been making the sub all the time, just can't get on the park for a kick. As for the Cats, Selwood and Dowhurst come back in the side. We've Lewis Henderson, who's been managed, and Max Holmes and Gary Rowan picked up an injury as well. So Geelong's forward attack has been depleted somewhat. Would you think, Hef?
Yes, I don't think Dalehouse is quite to the Rowan level. Interesting that Narkle gets a game. He's basically an in. He was the sub last week. He was unused. So we've been a bit of a fan of, a bit of a favourite in the show. Narkle have been trying to work out every week what's going to go on with him in and out. Looks like he's in. Just a quick word on that game, West Coast and North Melbourne. Not about the result. We'll leave that alone. But in terms of the rain and the boggy conditions, it didn't affect the game that much. It was still quite a lot of chipping around, likes of Aaron Hall got his 90-odd, Shannon Hearn got 90-odd, and Jaden Stevenson got 150 in wet conditions in WA, which just proves that you can play anyone. And he was 15% owned. Like, well done to everyone who found that. I did go and watch a game down here in freezing cold, misty rain conditions at Bellerive Oval, and Jaden Stevenson did not want to be there at all. So I don't know whether he got a G up or what happened, but he had an absolute one out of the box. But yeah, so you can play anyone and have a result if Stevenson's getting 150.
So you reckon just don't worry about the conditions too much, unless it's pouring again?
Yeah, I don't think the forecast is for too much rain. I think a lot of it's sort of morning to afternoon. The ground, I just held up so well, I thought, because obviously everyone was looking. There was plenty of rain going on pre-match and even during the game, but the teams were quite happy to chip the ball around. So, yeah, I'm not that worried about wet weather for this one.
Okay. Now, as always, we get on the dailyfantasyrankings.com.au, Australia's #1 free resource for your AFL daily fantasy. And I had to look up Dockers, as we said. It's the first time I've done this in a while, but I found out today that the Dockers on season average give up the most fantasy points to opposition backs. And I'm like, okay, we've been talking about Pies and we're talking about Tigers, but now the Dockers seem to, on season, so obviously big season trend, they're leaking to the backs. And we all know about Cats. Cats we've done so many times on the show. They don't give up any points to backs at all. Dockers accumulate the second worst number of tackles per game, and the Cats lead the league in uncontested possessions accumulated. So that could, bit of a theme there for you, Hef. And then the last 5 games, the Cats have actually given up the second highest fantasy points to premium mids, which is the surprising stat that I found out today. I thought, well, Cats just don't leak points to anyone, but they do start getting points through the midfield. So thoughts on your game theory for this particular matchup to start with?
Well, you need to start watching our show, Smatho, because we've been picking out these premium mids against the Cats and saying how well they've been going. So that doesn't actually surprise me. Couple of very interesting position stuff there. I reckon the backs we could almost cross off half the list if that's going to ring true, those numbers.
All right, let's get stuck into the game itself. So here we are, the $60,000 Dockers versus Cats. Shout out to Mark who's watching the stream, saying the lads with a capital LADS. Well done to you, mate. Thanks for joining us. And as always, we start here in the ruck position. Now we've got 5 options here, Hef. So the man, the ruckman of the moment, Sean Darcy at 14,540 leads this troop. Obviously, he's become Dean Cox 2.0 of the West. Everyone loves him over there. He's just starting to get a little bit of a name over here as well. But apart from his little blip against Collingwood, he's been smashing scores out here, 120, 132, 116. So that's 108 average in his last 4. But he goes up against the trio of Blixarves at 11,000, Stanley at 10,670, and Isava Radaglia at 7,980. I reckon a little bit overpriced with the man at the moment at Sean Darcy. What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, this is actually really hard. It's hard to play Blixarves at 11,000 with Stanley in the team. I actually don't mind Stanley at around that $10,000 mark, but he's very hard to have a lot of confidence in. Darcy, like, you can forgive a guy with a down match against Collingwood because that's basically one of the hardest matchups in the league, maybe have to pay up for Darcy. Some weeks I'm red hot on the rucks. This week I'm sort of just happy to go with a bit of Darcy, a bit of Stanley. Don't really like Blix. I've never really been a big Asava fan, and Rory Lobb, you know my thoughts. I don't really like playing the big tall forwards against Geelong, especially the Blixarves looks like he's going to spend a lot of time back, so that'll help. There's obviously Lobb and Tracy down there. Henderson's out of the side, so they need someone to play tall. So potentially one of these big Freo forwards might get a hold of him, but Blixarves playing predominantly back is going to help with that, but it's not going to help his fantasy scores.
Fair enough. I reckon I'll play the safe route here and select Darcy. I reckon he'll probably have a nice night under the primetime lights of Thursday night footy. Let's move on to the backs. And obviously, I've said in the DFR tools, the data's pretty damning. You've got Freo giving up a lot of points. You've got the Cats who don't. As I said, we've put a line through pretty much through Freo. I mean, there's a couple of guys you might want to speak about, but I'm pretty bullish, pretty big on these Cats backs. I love playing Stewart at 14,000 though now. That's starting to get a price where you're demanding a ton out of him. So if he doesn't get that game style of taking marks, intercept marks, kicks out of defence, that might be a bit of a hard price to get up to. Zach Tui, I will have to say here that he's only a defender now at 12,780. So those scores there crept up. So they're the two that will probably be popular, but we can't just chuck Tui in the midfield now as a dual player. So what are your thoughts on the Cats here, especially the premium options?
Yeah, Tui's sort of getting up there as well. I like both of them, obviously. Freo do some funny things. I wonder if they think about sending someone to Stewart, maybe a Bailey Banfield or one of those. I noticed they got a few blokes in those forward lines where it's hard to really know much about them. Switkowski and Schultz and Banfield, they're not exactly household names. I do wonder if they maybe use someone to go over and run with Tom Stewart. I'm surprised teams don't do it that often, but Cindy's all over Stewart there. I can't go against him. Looking through the other Geelong backs, it's the same old suspects. There's a guy all the way down the bottom, Jake Kolodjasny, who's down to 6,200, which seems a little bit low for him. He's coming off some bad scores. I was going to say, he's a go, but the more I think about it, he might have to play tall with Henderson out of the team, which wouldn't help. But look, he's always been around 8,000, views around 8,000. They've all been pretty similar, so he's got down in price. Maybe it's time to have a look at him. The other guy we'll make mention of is Mark O'Connor. We think about that team news. Selwood and Narkle are both in. I think that points to O'Connor maybe going back. Obviously, there's a chance he'll tag Nathan Fyfe, but yeah, I'm sort of leaning to O'Connor not tagging and going back here.
Okay, fair enough. Anyone from Freo that you possibly want to go contrarian on? Could be a sneaky one.
Oh, jeez.
I mean, Ryan's great at 12,990. He could be a good pivot off Stewart. But that only gives you $1,000 more. Ethan Hughes has come to the team. He hasn't really. Oh, there's a 99 there before that little 17. Yeah, but that's back in April. That was back in April against North Melbourne. Fair enough. Yeah.
No one stood out to me really.
No one's really standing out. So
Ryan's obviously a really good fantasy back, but worst matchup in the comp. Obviously, Geelong having to go to WA, that can sometimes muck around with the data. But look, I think I'm going with predominantly Geelong, unless you want to go for a big Freo stack and go total contrarian. And it worked with the North Melbourne game.
It did. Also, what else worked for me is the combination of Atkins and Buse that took me to that third place a couple of weeks ago. So I'm going to back the truck on those two. And speaking of back up the truck, Jamie suggests that now the Cats are $1.80. So the truck is actually being backed up on the Freo in the markets here. So keep an eye. Gamble responsibly, of course. But, like Trent even decides that Freo winning. So it's Yeah, this could change your little fantasy lineups here, but sticking to the data, Geelong backs it is. Let's move on to mids. So, yeah, we're at the stage of the season now where these prices are pretty settled. We're not really going to find any value players at this time of year, apart from the guy who's come in, Quinton Narkle, is at 7,240. He's got to find himself in more lineups again, but look at those scores there. The zeros are when you're sub 50. There's 50s where he get some game time. Good matchup this one though for him.
Yeah, you just look at that, you think, well, if he's got a floor of 50, he's very hard to get away from, Narkle, especially with all the high-priced options we've got. You see there O'Connor's an option there in the midfield, but I definitely prefer to go with Narkle. My approach in the midfield is I'll be looking for the main men for Freo. You talked about that premium mid stat. Especially the premium contested mid is the guy I like. So I think with three guys even fit the bill here: Brayshaw, Mundy, and Fife. Like I could see myself playing all of those guys. And then looking at Geelong, looking at the data, the Freo guys do give up a lot more uncontested ball in relation to contested possession. So I'm going to go looking for the uncontested guys, which means Guff Pig, I pretty much just look at him all the time. But then you got maybe look at the likes of Isaac Smith and Menegola, who are very hit and miss at times, but that sort of seems to suit their style of play. And the other thing we should sort of mention is Caleb Sarong, because he does get given jobs from time to time. I assume he would go to either a Dangerfield or a Selwood. So I'm not convinced that he will. I wouldn't steer away from playing either because thinking they're going to get tagged, but it's something that has to be mentioned that he does get a few jobs wrong.
Question for you as well with Gary Rowan out of the side. Will that push Dangerfield back into the inside 50 role that he tends to do?
Oh.
And with Selwood coming back, etc. Who's your CBA setup? Who's like it's Guthrie, it's Selwood, and Parfitt. Would be your main three?
Yeah, Parfitt could get squeezed out. He tends to cop the bit of the chop. They did bring Dalehouse in to replace Rowan, so they did bring in a forward to cover. I think he'd predominantly be in the midfield danger with a bit up forward. That would be my guess.
All right. Well, I am picking Carps wrong. Obviously, if he has a role again like he did last week, they'll lead into the footy. I love Brayshaw. Premium mids are starting to be leaky for Cats. And then you can work around your Mundy, Fife, and Dangerfield Smith here. I'm going to click for Mundy for now as that contested game. But there is some cash here in this particular side that you can make a few lineups. As we move on to the forwards, and look at this again, Hef. Look at all these dual position players that you can have in your forward line. It's literally just your six mid you can put in there. But blokes like Hawkins, Myers, Walters, Satoski do highlight a single position there. Is there any of these guys that stand out to get contrarian with your lineup?
Look, Myers is a guy who has a pretty high ceiling and a very uncontested role, so hasn't shown it as much this season. You see his high is only 91, but season's gone by, he has been able to pop off for the odd 100, so I don't mind him floating around. Higgins is a really hard one to sort of catch around the $11,000 mark. He's really good last week. He's got hundreds there. He's got 40, so I sprinkle Higgins all the time. We've talked about sprinkling Hawkins. They seem to have some key backs back now, though, Freo. Pearce and Logue's floating down there too. So, maybe they're not as prime as what they have been for the key forwards. If you want to scroll down, is there any cheap guys we can get our mitts into? We can play Narkle forward if we want to. Dalehouse is quite cheap. Liam Henry is a really cheap guy who caught my eye last week because he just kept stuffing up. But the thing was, he was getting in really good posies. Was it last week or the week before? Maybe against Carlton.
Yeah, the week before.
The week before, he was just getting great spots and just couldn't seal the deal. But if you're looking to roll out a big Freo stack and you want to follow the team in, the money in, all the talk of the money for Freo, then maybe he's a cheap guy that could complement your lineup.
Now, Trent suggests maybe possibly a Darcy Lobb double ruck stack. That could be a good pivot if you find a lot of picks like Parfitt or Higgins line up. It could be one if you're looking at your Freo stack, which I'm actually kind of looking at this particular team. So I want to get your thoughts on Michael Waters, though. Last week against the Hawks, did pop off for a 72 with 21 possessions. Obviously, there hardly any team changes from the team, so his role is still up forward. But could we see a little bit more Walters?
I'd probably back you to get 60 against the Hawks. That's my concern on that score there, Smatho. It's been a really awful year for Sonny Walters. A sprinkle. I find it hard to have too much confidence in him. His price is coming down, but yeah, you'd still probably want 70 plus at that price, and it's not a great matchup for him. I haven't lost you again here, have I, Smatho? He has. He's gone. I've poured cold water on his Michael Walters suggestion, and he's just spat it and taken off. All right. I'll run solo. That's about it. Here he comes. He's back.
Oh, he's back.
I can't believe I've talked down Sonny Walters and you've pulled the plug, Smatho.
All right, well, fair enough. If I'll pull the plug, I've spat it. Let me go down. Let me get the Sam Stupkowski, who seems to be trending in the right direction. Hopefully, he gets some more tackles in his game. So let's get Sam in, and then for the guys on the chat,
Sonny Walters. You put Sonny Walters in. I'll never hear the end of it if he goes off, and I've made you take him out of the winning lineup. I've already seen in the chat this team has won 4 times already. Before we even got through the team. You must be leaking this team, Smatho.
Mark wants to know, what position would I play, knowing that you've known me for a long time? Where would if you were coaching me in the under-16s or the veterans or the masters now, where would you put me?
I'm trying to liken you to someone. Will Day's coming to mind, Smatho. It was a bit of a like for like for you. Skinny, very outside, but quite brainy. The glasses make you look smart. I don't know what the game sense is like, but yeah, people do know you used to be a rugby player, don't they?
Oh yeah, I was a rugby player. Played pretty much every position. Handy
row.
Left foot, not in the front row, but from there. But handy little left footer. Don't mind a drop kick. Can nail some drop kicks from 20 out.
Cheap shot in the chat there from Cindy.
Water boy. I like getting the vest on, going out there having a squirt. You say, "Hey, mate, just keep it up." But those days are long gone. Anyway, so there's my team there. If the guys are on the podcast, it's Walters, Parfitt, Knuckle, Sarong, Brayshaw, Mundy, Atkins, Buse, and Darcy. I quite like that one. I might screenshot that later and put it in tomorrow.
The screenshot was at the top of the leaderboard tomorrow.
Very good. All right. Let's change this here. All right, so let's talk about Friday night footy, which is the Tigers and the Lions at the MCG. Jack Rewell, 300th game. Currently, the Lions are warm favourites at $1.47, the Lions 13.5, and the Tigers 147.5. There are some forecast of showers in Melbourne throughout Friday, so keep an eye on the conditions closer to bounce. As always, when we do these Fridays previews on a Wednesday, we don't have the full teams, but we do have some notes here, including that obviously we lost Eric Hipwood to an ACL. Marcus Adams is also out with stress fracture in his foot. But the lines indicate that both Jared Berry and Ryan Lester be in selection committee. Also, the Tigers, it's a bit hard to gauge on what their injury situation is at. We all thought that Toby Nankervis was going to be back, but he wasn't. But he should be in line to play on Friday night. But the likes of Kane Lambert and Callum Coleman-Jones, Shane Edwards and Nick Vlauston are all still recovering from their injuries. They are all down as tests or questionable. But check out the teams on Thursday night before putting your teams into Draftstars on Friday. So, Hef, what are your initial thoughts to this particular one before I bring up the tools from DFR?
So basically, we don't have a clue who's playing. So we'll try and just chop around. yeah, Richmond do sort of chop and change their roles depending on who they pick. One thing we do know is Hooley's not there, so we can go back to the old tried and true formula in the back line there. But Lions should be pretty settled at least.
Excellent. All right, so speaking of the Lions, they are last in the league for uncontested possessions, so there's still a low-scoring fantasy side. In the last 5, the Tigers have given up 94 fantasy points to number 1 rucks, which is third in the league. The Tigers have stopped giving up fantasy points to backs, however. They're now actually 12th in the league in the last 5, and both teams are bottom 5 for total possessions accumulated in the league. So we're not expecting a huge fantasy contest this one. But
do you think that the Tigers aren't giving up points to backs anymore because they're getting beat? Is that
I think they just lost the troops to kick it to. Literally, they try and get them down the wings to the half forwards as quick as they can. None of this Vlossen to short to Bull to Hooley back to short back to Vlossen.
Oh, you say they've stopped giving up the points to the opposition back, so maybe.
Oh yes, sorry, they've stopped.
Teams aren't having as much trouble with the Tigers lately, and they're not having to chip it around. So.
It's a huge possession. They're getting scores kicked on, which is obviously the case. I mean, if the Gold Coast Suns can kick a score on them, then yeah, that's the data tells us that straight away.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so Hef, let me bring up the lobby and let's start talking some potential players for this one. Let's say that Nank is back for the Tigers. He's going to go up against Oscar McInerney, and they're priced around the same, around that $12,000 mark. Now, these two teams actually played back in round 10, so you can go back and look at the scores from back then to see if you get a bit of a trend, but 8 weeks later, things have changed for the Tigers since then. But Nank hasn't played since the 30th of May. It was going really well. He was highlighted on our shows all the time. If he comes up at 12.6, looks to be an okay play. The other option is Marble Choi at 7,990. Now, he's a bit banged up, so if they could do a like-for-like swap, but if Nankervis doesn't get up and they bring out Chol again, he looks okay at that particular price against Oscar McInerney. Okay.
Yeah, I think I'm going to be playing a lot of McInerney either way. There's a little theory I have here with Nankervis. He's a big old draft horse, and he started the season really poorly. At 55, 51, 67 to start the season, and then he hit his straps. On that basis, I'm just wondering whether he's a risk to play off an injury break. There's no real risk with McInerney. We know, Nankervis has given up points until this year, apparently, but I still wouldn't be too upset playing McInerney against him if he was to play. If he doesn't get up Nankervis and they go with Chol, I'm pretty happy playing both here in one of your favourite double ruck stacks.
Oh, yes.
Like, Chol's been quite good. He was a bit down last week. He's against Grundy, though. So 52 against Grundy. I've seen better ruckmen score 52 against Grundy before, so that's not too bad. At that price, I think, yeah, I'll be quite happy to play a lot of both of them. And obviously, if Chol plays, that makes the job easier for McInerney as well. So they're the two guys I'm focused on. I'm fading Nankervis first up from a spell. I think he'll be a bit burly in the yard and might need the run.
Okay. I'll put Oscar in for now. Bit of a safe play. Let's move on to the defenders. Look, it's pretty thin down now for the Tigers. So with the Pies stopped their ability to score fantasy points last week. Look, Jaded Short was admirable. He got that 107, but with no Hooley. Baker got to 78 last week at 10.9. And then you got blokes like Dylan Grimes, 65 last week at 9,000. Asprey returned to the side with about a 58. There's just not many of these guys here to pick that give you confidence. They're all key position players apart from Short. But in a low-scoring fantasy matchup, you might be able to find some value here, though.
Well, let's start with some value. I think James Madden is pretty well priced. He's there at 6.5. Yeah, I don't know a whole lot about him, but he seems to be a pretty good chance of getting 50 plus at that price if you want to save a bit of cash. If you really want to save cash, Ryan Mansell, at least he's a bit more of a runner. 55 last week against the Pies. Like, that's a pretty easy matchup, even though they lost. But so I think there's at least a couple of guys there that you can look at if you want to save money. We've talked about the the Tigers hierarchy in the back line. Once Hooley comes out, Short gets the big boost, and then Baker gets a bit of a boost as well. They're two guys that are playable for mine. Short, he can take all the kick-ins as well, Short. And like Joey Danaher's up there spraying them around. There might be a lot of kick-ins.
Now, obviously different circumstances, but he did have a 61 against the Lions last time out with only 2 marks. That's his game, though. If you can get that high marks, which you can see here, he had 15 against the Eagles and 12 against the Crows, that really boosts his score. But if he doesn't get on the end of the chains, then that could be a worry.
Yeah, that is true. He did get 107 with 2 marks last week. I think just with Hooley out of the team, he doesn't have Hooley sprinting hard to get those cheap ones in the back line, so Short tends to get a lot more of them. So, I'll be pretty happy playing Short. And then, I'd probably pair him with a cheaper guy. But there's no real knock on Rich/Birchall because they keep standing out. There's not a lot of like hidden value in those guys at all by any stretch. But they're the guys we tend to focus on with Brisbane. But, I'd probably have a look at those cheaper guys. Might be able to save a little bit of cash through there. But there are some cheap options on this slate. So, plenty of options actually this game.
There's plenty of options, especially through the midfield, because if you look at here now, look at that. Jared Lyons, Dane Zorko, McCluggage and Near highlight the Lions midfield there. They're all about 13,860. If you get that value in your backs and your forwards, sure, you can run 2 or 3 of these guys through your midfield. But at max, you probably want to be investing in 2 at best so you can save for other positions. So any leans on these particular guys? Lions at 16,400 obviously is the highlight. But McCluggage last week, we thought he was going down, he came back with a vengeance with 103. There might be a bit underpriced there at 14-1.
Yeah, it's a decent matchup too. We know the Tigers do give up a fair bit of uncontested ball. We had 97 against them last time these two teams played. That was out without Lockie Neal in the team. Lockie Neal he basically looks a lock, doesn't he, at that $13,000 price tag, coming off 3 tons. Can't really seem Richmond don't really pay much attention to anyone in particular, so he's going to be super chalk, Lockie Neal, probably for good reason. Like McCluggage, like Zorko, like Lyons, he top scored last time these two teams played. There's no knock on any of these big 4 Brisbane players, and that's sort of the case every time they come up. Even Zach Bailey starting to get up in price. He's be pretty. He can obviously go 9x. You see there a few times there with 90s. One guy I would want to avoid again is Jared Berry. 9,000 is a pretty good price for him, but he's just had all these injury worries, and he does seem to take a bit of time to hit his straps. So I wouldn't get sucked in by the cheap price on Berry. I want to see him do it first.
Now let's talk about Tigers. Shai Bolton's been their shining light through the midfield. Had a 90 last week against the Pies. Martin seems to be a bit lost now.
Couldn't give a stuff, could he?
No, he doesn't want, as I said, in rugby, you just got to put your shoulder for him, and he's not really putting his shoulder for any bloke at the moment. So maybe he pops again. It's a nice price at 12.6, but
price.
It can sink you as well at this stage. Cochin, hasn't Koch received a little bit of attention this week? People have written him off. Coach has come out and saying, no, I don't prefer having 35 touches around half back line. He's not that kind of player. What is he? No. What is he going to do for us?
Yeah, I'm with him. He just needs to give him grunt around the ball, Cochin. Dimmer doesn't care what fantasy score he gets, and we probably won't either because I don't think I'll be playing too much Cochin.
Anyone down here? The barometers here at 8-4, but I don't think he will get a game. Devon Robertson is starting to get a bit of a tease now. A lot of people played him last week, including myself, and is that a stink up a game, or is that we won't worry about that and possibly back the truck up on him?
No, I think he's almost found his mark there, Robertson. Like you can play him. I don't think he's any outstanding value. There's a few cheap guys down here. Naish, I spotted him in the back line a few times. Jack Ross, if he seems to get a game, I think we seem to talk about him all the time as a cheap option. You just see his scores there. If he gets a run at 5,000, well, he's just capable of going 10x a lot of the time, Jack Ross. And there's another cheapie around the mark too. Collier Dawkins. The thing about Brisbane is they play a very contested style of footy. So even though they've got a very strong inside midfield, it does mean that a guy like Collier Dawkins is going to be in the action a lot, because I think if the ball's flicking around a bit, it can go a bit fast for him. But if it's a very contested game, I think that brings him into the game. So 7,800 is, like, I prefer him a little bit cheaper, but I still think he's a pretty reasonable play, and he won't be over-owned, I don't think. He's letting a few people down lately.
Yeah, all right. So if Ross doesn't get a go, then Collier Dawkins for me. If Ross does get selected, then, yeah, I'll go straight down to him, save the cash of that. Let me feel out this particular side. We've got Neil. I'll probably go McCluggage. I'll save that last spot just in case I need some money. Let's move on to forwards. Jack Rewalt, 300 game, 8,990. Are you a believer in these kind of milestone games that these guys can go off, or just like, well, sometimes they go missing?
I
mean, Nat Fife did all right.
Either way, actually.
Well, Nat Fife did all right last week for his 250th.
Was that because of his milestone, or because it was in the sheds waiting for him when he came out?
I would say the latter. I reckon.
I'd easily say the latter. That Fife wouldn't even know what game it was, would he? We always talk about Harris Andrews, actually, about how he gets goals kicked on him. Tommy Lynch kicked 3 on them last time they played. He's still only 9,700. He's in some pretty decent touch. So I'd be happy to play Lynch against Harris Andrews. I assume that's the matchup. You want to go really cheap. I know you want to go. Yes. Very, very true. Go right down the bottom here. There's a guy who's been given a totally different role, I think. I can't admit to watching too much of Richmond Collingwood, but Daniel Rioli, they ran him off half-back, did they, Smatho?
Yeah, he's been playing half-back in the VFL, and I played him last Saturday, or was that Sunday? Last week. And he was real cheap, and he's still real cheap. He got to 49. A lot of handballs there, though. I prefer those in kicks, but that could be the piece that viewers of the show think, oh, yeah, this is not too bad. 6-2, not many scores. That could be a potential ceiling game for him, but a lot of confidence, though.
Another guy, actually, I saw had 5 centre bounces down at 5K was Thompson Dow. Basically hasn't done anything so far, but he wasn't a super high pick, but he was sort of into first round, I think, from memory. Obviously hasn't had much of a go because it's been a pretty hard team to get into, but there's a bit of a left fielder. 5,000, he's not going to do too much damage, and he just seemed to get a little bit of midfield time, and that's hard to turn down at 5,000. So there are a couple of little left fielders for me, Smatho. If you do want to save some cash and go for the big midfielders, and even if you want to throw Dusty in your forward line, you've got an option to use one of those cheap guys.
Let me see if I can get... Yeah, I'm starting to get a little bit Richmond heavy now. There are some good... Yeah, I reckon if Dow gets a go, they're great. If not, get up to Rioli. That will save you some money for that. Same again, RCD. That Ross combination. So they're the guys you probably have to target for your value, and then trying to hit those premium lines mid. So it's going to be an interesting one.
We've got some cheap Brisbane guys there, but they're pretty cheap for a reason, whereas there's just a couple of little hidden value in these Richmond cheapies. But you're right, it gets easy to play Richmond, and, well, I'm not sure we want to have too many Richmond players.
No, the confidence is real low.
Because I'm sick of backing up on them. Every week I come on here and say, oh, this will be the week for Richmond. They'll really come out this week, and then they just get beat again. So are they gone? Smatho, are they gone?
Yes. Yeah, they're gone.
Oh,
They're gone. But it is Jack's reroll 300 game. That's the only thing that's saying in my head, hey, just think about that. They'll get up for this one.
make sure you put that on Twitter, that little clip.
Yeah.
You saying Richmond's gone.
Okay, fair enough. All right, mate. We'll wrap that up here for the latest edition of the DFS Down Under Show. Thanks to all the viewers who have been watching on the live stream and all the guys on the replay. Make sure you get the draftstars.com.au. As I said, there's plenty of action on the site at the moment, plenty of contests. So get onto that. Under 30 tickets for the golden ticket. Good luck to all those who are trying to get into the live final. Now, Hef, you know what the best news that I texted you earlier the week was?
No.
No Thursday night game next week. We're back to Friday.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. You don't have to talk to me for as long anymore.
So we're back to the single game for round 19. So we'll be back on Thursday, 8:30 Australian Eastern Standard Time for that particular stream. We'll do a proper analysis of the Friday night game. Hef, thanks for joining me on the stream tonight. Thanks for all the guys in the chat. Very amusing night. And thanks for all your work, mate.
Excellent. See you next week.
See you next week. Cheers, mate.